And we're starting. Hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully everything's okay. My signal strength says excellent, so that is good. Excellent. And I'm apparently coming through pretty clear. So we will get started. Let me just copy and paste this. Actually, that is wrong. Let me do episode 7. I gotta change it. Gotta change it. Gotta change it. Man, that didn't work. Oh well. Okay. Let me do this. Let's try that. I don't know. I guess that'll work. We'll try it. All right. So to get started, what can we do? Let's do our normal thing. We're going to do the normal things we always do. So let's do a little list there. Okay, there you go. We are going to do some listener feedback, which, by the way, I don't have any, so that'll be short. Then we're going to do some cybersecurity news, and then I got one little how-to instructional, and I have one of my usual website tool of the week, which you may or may not find interesting or helpful, but we'll try it. At least I'll tell you about it. So, listener feedback. I didn't get any feedback, so if you'd like to leave feedback, you're welcome to send me an email, LorenMJ@gmail.com. Or you can also comment. If you want, if you're here live, you can comment with me right now, and I will be happy to respond. Or if you later on, I'll put this up on YouTube, and you're welcome to comment on YouTube content. I watch those too. I actually respond to them, and I'll include them in my listener feedback for the next show if they're relevant or helpful. So I appreciate everybody hanging out. If you're watching the recording, then thanks for checking out my channel, and I'd like to please remind you to leave a like and share, and whatever else to be able to help me expand my reach. I do appreciate it. I have also adjusted one setting on the audio to help out a little more. I noticed it was better, but I would like to get a little more better. So I endeavor to do that. So please let me know if this episode is any better on the audio. So to get started, let's cover the cybersecurity news since we skipped the feedback. So here is the news. The first bit of news that I have is this one here. Oh, no, not that one. It's backwards. Let's do this. Okay. So the story is Feds arrest Russians accused of running the largest pirated ebook library. It's by Ashley Belanger at Ars Technica. The U.S. Department of Justice has indicted or charged the Russian nationals Anton Nilopsky and Valeria Ermakova. I am probably butchering that, but in any case, they're charged with criminal copyright infringement, wire fraud, and money laundering. And the way they're doing this is running a ebook library. This is called Z-Library. It has, over time, since 2009 to be exact, it has linked people to be able to buy, or not buy, but obtain ebooks for free. These are books you would normally pay for. Just like you'd normally go to Amazon and buy a book, or even buy a digital copy of the book, maybe to copy over to your your Kindle or whatever. In this case, you don't pay for it. You just don't pay for it. Now, they do want you to create a login. Of course, you register. But that's it. As long as you're registered, you can download about, I think the limit's 10 books. If you pay a little bit more for it, a couple of dollars, they'll let you do even more books. In any case, the feds, of course, took down the servers that were running this. However, they could not successfully bring down the Z library on the dark web, so it still exists. It's still running. You can still register. You can still download ebooks. Just to test it, I actually tried a few minutes ago. Here's what it looks like on the dark web. Here you can just type in whatever you'd like to search for on the Z library, and you're immediately you can download it. To test, I picked this book here. Now, I own this book. I own a copy of this book. So I wasn't too worried about getting harassed for copyright, since I do personally own a copy of this book, a real copy of this book. So what I did was I tried to download it, and it's successfully downloaded. I haven't opened it, but it appears to be legit. It is the EPUB format is what I picked. So let's see. Yeah, I picked the EPUB format. It obviously has other things. You can do send a Kindle if you have a premium membership. This is basically it here. You can just click download, and it will directly download. It doesn't go to another page where you have to pay anything or sign up for anything. That's it. It just downloads. So that's how that works. And it's still working. So the way this started was, it didn't start, but the way they found it is that, it started way back in 2009, but apparently it was pretty popular and just taking off, really. But it started to get a lot of viewers and a lot of notice on TikTok. So they would use the hashtag Z library in their statements and in their advertisements or whatever, or their chats or comments. And there was even some authors that were getting on TikTok and saying that Z library is killing us, and they would hashtag Z library. So it started to get very much noticed. The authors started to cry out about it, and that's when the FBI noticed, and the U.S. attorneys put it on the U.S. attorney's radar, and they shut it down. Of course, they shut it down on the normal web. It is still working on the dark web, as you saw. Here it is. So there you go. It's of course slow because it's the dark web, but it does work. It's all here. So just about anything you could want. I didn't do any exhaustive searches, but I did play around with it, and I was able to download a book. So there you go. So let's look at our next story. This story is entitled "Massive Sinkhole Threatens to Swallow West Virginia Police Department" by ZOE SOTTILE at CNN. So you can get this at CNN. Apparently this huge sinkhole came up right next to the police department and is threatening to swallow it completely if it hasn't already. So it opened up right next to the West Virginia Police Department. It disrupted traffic, of course, as you can see. It took up some of the road there. So it opened in June, but it was only about 6 feet wide and 30 feet deep. But then it just got larger and larger. The reason for it is a 90-year-old drain below the road that eventually eroded away and caused the erosion of the soil, and then the road fell. So the reason I bring this up as a cybersecurity type thing is that when we do risk analysis, we have to take things like this into consideration. So in your risk analysis, you will put this. So if you live in an area that is prone to sinkholes, or an area that's prone to a lot of wash off of mountains. If you live this close to mountains, or if your office is this close to mountains, then you could have a risk of this kind of thing happening. So it would be prudent to put this into your risk assessment. Honestly, I would put it as a once in a 10 or 20 year type of occurrence. So just to be fair, it's not a frequent occurrence. And of course, you lump that into your computations as far as your risk analysis. The computations are fairly simple for risk analysis if you've ever seen them. They're basically how many times does something happen, what is the chance of something happening in your area over time. So if it happens once in a 60-year period, then that's fairly rare. And so what you do is you'd say you decide what kind of time frame is important to you. So say a 10-year time frame is important to you, or a 20-year time frame. So you would say, well, if it's once in 60 years, then that means that in 20 years it has a chance of 1 in 3, a 1 in 3 possibility of it happening or less. So what you do is you take your budget for a disaster and consider this a possibility and devote 1/3 of the cost to it, so that you can properly have insurance and whatever else. That tells you a gauge as to what kind of money you need to spend on it. So that's why I bring this up, and it is this could have been something that was important, as in possibly a network node that the state was moving through, or something like that. There could be radio towers near these places, so you would want to always calculate that into your expenses. You don't know that if this was a major thoroughfare for your networking cabling, then these houses around this area would be suffering with no internet. Any businesses around there would be suffering with no internet. So that would be something you'd want to calculate into your possibilities. And have a satellite system on the roof, as a backup, something in that case. So let's move on. The third story I've got is about, from Google, of course. This story is titled, Google ships 8th emergency Chrome update for Mac to fix high-severity flaw, by Michael Simon. This is at macworld.com. He works there. So this is technically it's a heap buffer overflow in the GPU. This is only on ARM systems. So as far as Mac's concerned, it's not on your Intel Macs. It's on your ARM Macs. So it's your M1, M2 processor Macs. And Google has been working out different types of problems with that. So look here. Here it'll give you some previous high-severity 0 days that have happened against Chrome. So you can see this has been a very busy year. So as these updates get rolled out to Mac users, you need to be able to go to Chrome, go to About, Preferences, About, and then check for update and relaunch your browser. Do that. It should do it every day for you. It should tell you when you first start Chrome. But I know if you're like me, you're like a lot of people, they don't ever close their browser. So maybe leave it up all the time. Well, it's a good idea to close it every once in a while, reopen it. That way it can go out and check to see if updates are happening. So with that, let's move on to the next story. This is story number 4, also from Google, about Google anyway. This is Google says Google should do a better job of patching Android phones, by AMADEO, who works at Ars Technica. So what this is doing is, and the reason it says that, Google says Google, is that Google has a project, and it's called Project Zero. It's a team of security analysts who are trying to deal with 0-day vulnerabilities, trying to reduce them from happening. And they have noticed a trend. And the trend is that when Google is addressing ARM GPU or GPU or CPU type devices, it is slow. So it reported these issues that it was dealt with promptly in July and August, but later it was not dealt with so promptly. So it's important that they continue to deal with it promptly, and apparently their own project, their own security analysts say that they are slow about it. So that's the reason that it's entitled Google Says Google. So Google says Google should do a better job. I would agree. Google needs to tell Google they're doing a bad job. So the groups that are dropping the ball apparently are not only Google, but some Android OEMs, so people that make Android phones. I would think that you'd probably be, your Samsungs. I don't know, LG. Does LG make a phone still? All of these type of manufacturers that make these Google phones, they're the ones that are being slow, according to Google anyway. So Project Zero says that months after ARM fixed the vulnerabilities, all of our test devices which used Mali are still vulnerable to these issues. So, their goal is to minimize that little patch gap where you've got a 0 day that comes out, and then you've got a few days before it gets fixed. So how many days do you go out before something gets dealt with, mitigated, or workaround, or a patch, hopefully a patch. But you need to close this gap here. Everybody's involved in this, and that's unfortunate with Google and the way they make their phones. Is that unlike Apple controls everything. Apple controls bottom to top. They control who manufactures their phones because they do. They control who manufactures the components because mostly they do. So it's a matter of they've got such tight control that they can do that. However, when you have Google, and they make the operating system, right, Android, and they do make one of the phones that run Android, but they don't make all of the phones that run Android. Sometimes, Samsung makes them. Other people make them. So it's that's what you've got. You've got an architecture that is so open, anybody can make a phone, and it has no control of them. It has no control over what chips you use or any of that. So it has no control over the providers of the services, like the mobile services. So it can't tell. It doesn't own the network or anything. All it owns is the operating system. And even that, there are so many libraries, it probably doesn't own much of that either. But that depends. And you'd have to be an Android developer to say that for sure. But I do appreciate that they do have this Project Zero that they made, and they are criticizing themselves. So that's it's good to hear in a way, So let's go to the next one. This article I found interesting. It's called What Travel Warnings Do Other Nations Give Their Citizens About U.S. Violence? By Forrest Brown at CNN. So for those who didn't know, if you are a citizen in the United States, you should know about the State Department. The State Department tracks other countries other than the United States, and it tells you whether you should be going there or not. In other words, if you're going to tour, say you're going to go to the Asian country, or go to Middle Eastern country, or go to South America or something like that, and you want to know if there's any reason you should be worried, well, you would visit the State Department, and the State Department would tell you, here's what's going on down there, and here's our relationship with them. So if the United States doesn't have a good relationship with that country that you're about to visit, then you may want to cancel your plans, or at least include that risk in your plans. So what they've done here is they're wondering, well, given the uptick in violence in the United States, what do other countries say about the United States? So in other words, if we're Australian, for example, and we go to our State Department, what do they say about me going to the United States and touring? So they did this. They took a few countries, for example, Australia. And so what does Australia say? Well, Australia says that it reminds would-be travelers it's legal for U.S. citizens to openly carry firearms in public. So I mean, that's a quote. It says that. So it basically is warning its own citizens that United States citizens are allowed to carry weapons. So keep that in mind. What about our neighbors to the north, Canada? Canada warns, the government also reminds Canadians of the frequent mass shootings in the United States. Increases of mass shootings occur, resulting most often in casualties. Although tourists are rarely involved, there's a risk of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So that's what Canadians are warned when Canadians visit the United States. I picked another one, French. So let's look at France here. France is, so this is the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So that's their State Department, if you will. They said that they're kind of particular about cities and areas, so they did this. I like what they said about Boston. It says it is recommended to avoid traveling alone on foot and at night in certain parts of Dorchester, Mattapan, and Roxbury. So they've actually done the homework of looking at certain places and saying, be careful around there. In Atlanta, for example, the French visitors are told to be vigilant in isolated areas of the city center after the close of business and favor taxi travel at night. They also do Mexico, Germany, Japan. They do a few others. I just found it interesting. It's sometimes interesting to step out of the bubble of the United States and look at the United States from another person's perspective and say, what do they think? And this is also a good reminder that if you are traveling anywhere outside the United States, and if you're a United States citizen, it is always good to visit the State Department. Look up the country you're visiting, even the city or whatever area you're in, and look it up and see what kind of things you should be warned about. And the State Department does a very good job about putting all kinds of things there. So be warned. Do that as often as you need. Bookmark it. Make sure that if you travel a lot, you are aware of those sites and what they offer you. And I'm gonna have to pause for a second. Let me mute. There we go. Sorry about that. So let's move to the next story. It is my last story. Oh, no, it's not my last story. This is second to last story. It's number 6. This one is entitled, Your Data is Up for Sale on Cyber Monday by Molly Collette. This is at slate.com. So this one is about you see all the sales for Cyber Mondays, Black Friday and all that stuff. Well, your data is also on sale. So in your rush to pay for something, or in your rush to buy something, or buy a gift for someone, be very extra cautious. Don't get in a hurry. Make sure that you're still following good principles when dealing with your financial transactions. Don't take any risks. If you're using a site that wants money or wants to use a strange method of payment, be extra cautious about that. So this article is basically warning us about that. We've got all kinds of problems. There's still some gaps between sorry about that. There's still some gaps on what we're doing as far as protecting the financial sector. They call it fintech, financial plus technical, kind of, where it crosses. There are still some problems, and it's good to understand those issues and to know what you're getting into. For example, I like the way that this one kind of puts out here some help for you to understand what's going on. For example, this paragraph here. So it talks about this payment facilitator called Plaid. Oh, I've never heard of Plaid. Well, right, but you've probably heard of Venmo, right? Venmo uses Plaid. So if you've used Venmo, you've used Plaid. Plaid is the one that collects granular information about users' bank accounts, credit accounts, loans, and investments, as well as any personal information that it sees. And every transaction, if it has any data attached to it, like a geolocation, it will capture it. It is very likely that if you've used Venmo, that every piece of data that they could collect about your transaction was collected. So it's something to think about. So it's not just, hey, I use Venmo, it's okay, I only put a few, I put just some money on there just to do certain things with, and that's all. Well, it's still being mined for data aggressively. So these are the little areas, little gaps between things that we think are safe, like banks, and things that we think are also safe, like being able to buy something online. But yet, this falls in the gaps. It's not quite covered by an overarching policy. So that's the problem. What your reasonable expectations of privacy are sort of gone in this case, because of how the industry has to transfer this data, or transfer to help your transaction along. It has to deal with people in the middle, these payment facilitators, aggregators, other types of fund collectors. So be aware of that. Don't necessarily. I'm not trying to stop you. If you use Venmo for things, well then fine. But really be aware of what's going on, especially if you've got these little financial services that you don't use very much. Be very careful of them. So that's why I put this in here. And my last story is entitled "The Family of Riverside Catfishing Murder Victims Give Update." Now that's the title of it on CNN, but it's an update to many other articles that were kind of collected here. So the way it started was way down here when there was what's called a catfish murder. I have a problem with that. Why do we call it catfish murder? Catfishing is nothing but putting bait out and catching something, right? Replacing something with something else. I mean, I don't know why we have to put a name like that on it. Basically, this guy here, his name, let's see, Austin Lee Edwards, 28. He was the perpetrator. He catfished a teenager, and this teenager, 15, she arranged or somehow gave away her address. So he comes into that home and kills her parents, her parent, and her grandparents. So there's 3 victims that died. Mark, 69, his wife Sherry, 65, and their daughter Brooke, 38. Now this is the mother of the teen. So in any case, police say the suspect killed the grandparents and mother of a teenage girl he had met through catfishing, a form of online deception in which someone pretends to be a different person. Duh. I mean, if you're online, you're pretending to be a different person. So I don't know why we have to put a name to it. It really frustrates me. I don't like that we have to call something a name like that just to make it more confusing. The teen was unharmed, supposedly, or at least that's what police said. The suspect died because he died in a shootout with police. The 15-year-old victim is in Child Protective Services and is getting extensive medical treatment. That's what a family friend said. So here's the biggest deal, is that this guy basically portrayed himself as a teenager. He started chatting with another teenager and catfished her. So basically he's saying, I'm a teen. He uses whatever grooming techniques that he could to be able to have her disclose where she lives, where she goes to school, any other data that he could get out of her. And then used that to find her. And then when he got there, he killed her family. As bad as this is, it could have gone other ways too. we could be missing a teen at this point, if this had gone differently. This guy is also, he's trained. He used to be a Virginia State Trooper, but he resigned. So, in any case, he wasn't with the agency very long, but still, it's frustrating for me as a person that sees this to, as I help people to deal with things like their identity. It applies to your children too. And something parents don't really realize is that you, as a parent, are expected by those of us in law enforcement and those of us in information technology, you are expected to be responsible for and control and be aware of everything in your child's life. So it is completely okay, legally and otherwise, to know everything that your child knows. Now, some people say that's a violation of privacy. It's not. If you're a parent of a teenager, of a minor, it is expected that you will regularly view every piece of data on their phone. So it is expected of you as a parent to regularly look at the messages on your teen's phone. You're expected to regularly look into other apps too, like Telegram or Signal or any other chat programs or TikTok or whatever. You are expected to know everything that's going on in your child's life. And that means grabbing their phone and looking at it. You should have the code to unlock it. You likely pay for it, so you have the ability to put restrictions on it. And I would do that. I would also turn on things like location awareness so that you can find it at any time of the day. And it cannot be turned off without your password. So I would do this to my children if I had children. And it is expected that you have done this with your children. So if nothing else, this is a great opportunity to take this or similar articles and put it in front of your child and say, do you know how this happened? Do you understand how this happened? And not to scare them, but to educate them, to say, we don't want this happening to you, or anything remotely related to this happening to you. So you understand that you need to know every single person you're chatting with. You need to know them in real life. You should have no friends or acquaintances that you do not personally know, that you see at school, church, or otherwise. Family, whatever. Every person that's in your contact list and in your chat, you should know, and your parents should know. So there's your recommendations from a cybersecurity analyst. You should absolutely know everything about your child. You should have, if nothing else, if you don't want to violate their privacy, or if you want to give them some space or whatever, that's fine. But it is an illusion. So I would recommend that if you want to maintain that illusion, then go to their phone sometime when they're asleep, unlock it, put all of the parental controls on it, turn them all on, and assign yourself as a parent and them as a child. You may also go to the provider of your network service, like whether it's AT&T or Sprint or Verizon, whoever. You can go there and you can say, I want the text messages to and from this phone and the phone calls to and from this phone for the last 3 months. And they will print it out for you. It may take some time. It may cost something, like a fee for the data retrieval, but you can do it. And I would suggest you do it. I would suggest that you do it. If nothing else, just get an idea of what it looks like. Try it for the next 3 months, or for the past 3 months. Go ahead and get it. Take a look at it and see what's going on. And I would lean toward making it a subject of discussion rather than making it an inquisition. As in, I don't know this number. Do you know whose number this is? I don't recognize this number, and I saw it the other day. Do you know who this is? Oh, yeah, that's my friend, whoever at school. We had to work on a project together. Okay. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Time Machine 81. Yeah, good. I mean, I don't have any kids either. But there was a time when I was guardian for a couple of children over a summer. So, yeah, hi. And we demanded that. We demanded a letter that put us in guardianship for the next 3 months. And we had complete access to their phones. So, yeah. I would take the phone, I would unlock it, and I would look all through it. And I would do it with them standing right there. And I was not kidding about it, and I made it very clear that everything that happened in my house, I knew about. I had installed keyloggers on any device that they used. And yeah, it led to me finding out some interesting things. And I ended up sharing that with their mother. So later, I shared it with the mother. And it proved to be interesting, right? Exactly. I'm the boss. I'm responsible for it, right? Because it's leaving my network, which is at home. And it turned out he was chatting with somebody on Facebook about something. Basically, he tried to say that it wasn't his account and that he shared that Facebook account with someone else. And that person was the one sending the messages. But I said no. Those messages came from the computer in my house. And I know that because it was a keylogger. Yep. There's too many crazy people. So he's basically lying. And I told his mother. Put out a nice little letter. I printed out all the data, printed it all out, and gave it to her when I handed him over. And I was like, I'm not taking care of him anymore. I'm done. And here is my evidence. He tried to say, oh, that's someone else. I share that account with somebody. No. It came from my house. You typed it. In any case, as a parent, you're expected to be watching your child so that this kind of thing would never happen. For them to get to this bad, it's just bad. And look at the cost. 3 people died. And I'm sure that this young lady is scarred forever. I mean, she's only 15 years old, and she is personally responsible for 3 people in her family dying. Ignore stream elements. I need to fix that. Yeah. It's always good to know who you're dealing with. You really need to know. Yeah. Internet's not your front yard. I mean, come on. This is not a safe place. So you see this over and over. In any case, that's the last article I was going to go over. I'm not sure when you came in, Time Machine, but this is what I normally do, is I do some news, and I've already gone through all this news. But we just talked about all these different articles in the news. Travel warnings, Cyber Monday, that kind of stuff. A federal arrest of some Russians. Well, they haven't arrested them yet. Well, they've technically arrested them, but they haven't been extradited to the U.S. I looked this up just before I came online, started my stream. But the update to it was that they're still waiting for exfiltration, or getting them from Argentina, I think it is. They're arrested in Argentina, but they're waiting. They're waiting on extradition. So, and I actually looked this up. They did take down the it's called Z Library, by the way. This article, if you missed it, I don't know, but it's where a couple of Russians set up this place called Z Library, and it's like an Amazon, except all they do is ebooks, and they're all download for free. So it is called Z Library. They took down the whole operation, except they didn't take it down on the dark web yet. So yeah, it's still active on the dark web. In any case, yeah, this is what I do. Is kind of like I do a little show about cybersecurity. I go through the news. I typically have about 5 to 10 articles I talk about, and then how they relate to cybersecurity. And I do some listener feedback. And at the end, I do 2 more things. The one thing I do is I do a little like it's a, what do you want to call it? I guess I call it a sort of an educational piece where I talk about cybersecurity. And the part I was going to do today is business continuity planning. I know it's kind of boring, business continuity, but that's basically disaster preparation is what it is. So take your business and say, well, what could happen to your business? You need to be able to calculate risks. And if you can't do that, then you really need to learn how. If you don't do this, if you've got a business of any size, even more than just yourself, you need to start doing business recovery plans. And business recovery plans often have how would you set up your business completely from scratch, right? How would you do it today if it completely failed? How would you, if your building was destroyed, or something like that? What would you do to rebuild your business? So you need to have a plan, a written down guide, step by step, of continuing your business after a disaster. And that is what this is. This is part of the cybersecurity framework of knowledge. They call it the CBK, the common body of knowledge. That is business continuity. So you, as a cybersecurity expert, would be expected to come up with the business continuity plan. The goals of it is to ensure the business operates no matter what. Availability is the most important factor. And first of all, you want to make sure you're not preventing human law, or you're not doing anything that is against safety practices or human loss or tragedy. You want to first off do that. So avoid that, and then avoid any serious damage to the business. So what you need to do is scope. The scope is figure out what you can do and what all you could rebuild if you needed to. And then the second thing is to establish the plan. And the plan means people. So if you've got enough people in your organization, you'd pick those people and you'd say, you need to develop this part of it. So you need to develop the engineering system. So say you build widgets. Well, you need to talk to your suppliers. You need to talk to everybody. You need to have people under you that can remake. Oh, I wish stream elements would go away. What is your problem, stream elements? Anyway, you ridiculous thing. I'll fix it later. Sorry about that. In any case, business continuity. Identify the plan. Identify people that you need to write the plan. You need to go over these plans, review them. You might even spend some time at doing a tabletop exercise where you're sitting around a table and you're saying let's suggest that just like in this other where'd it go? Okay, so a sinkhole came under our business today. What would we do? That's part of your like sinkhole just ate your building. What's the business continuity plan? That's a serious consideration. You need to sit around a table and work this out, and that's how you do it. You do an impact analysis, like what would this do to my business? Could my business function? Can someone get in there and grab my file cabinet? Could someone grab my desk because there's important papers in there? Someone needs to do that. Weekly, yeah. You need team meetings weekly anyway. But at some point, you need to do these tabletop exercises and say, what would happen? What would we do? And, not just a sinkhole. What if a fire happened? What if somebody ran their SUV into the front of our shop or whatever? You need to work that out. See what you have, a step-by-step process you go through to rebuild the business. Big snowstorm, yeah. One time I heard about this. This is a story, but there's a certain business who had all of their. They basically did 60% of their business for the year on one day, and you can imagine that, right? It's probably based on a holiday or something like that. Maybe their business is based on the holiday. They do 60% of their business on one day. So that means that one day is very important. So they have everything going for that one day. Everything is about that one day. I understand 40% of their business is other times, but that can be done online. It can be done other ways. But that one day, they did all their business. And it was all walk-ins. People just walking off the street and say, hey, I'd like to buy this. Hey, it's a certain holiday or whatever. So they go in and they buy stuff. 60% of their business on that one day. And guess what? On that one day, the city decided to have a parade. And they blocked off their street. You can't open. Imagine that. Now that is your disaster. 60% of your income just got taken away by an oops. That's happened. This isn't just a story. This happened. So what did they do? Well, they turned their shop around. They opened the back door, opening to an alley, and then put signs up and said, "We're still open. We're back here." And they filed people through the back way and made sure it was clean. They had their workers lined up there. They hired a few more extra workers to line up there to make sure people knew which way to go. And all the people that came to them normally would come in, get there, find that they're having this parade, and say, what do I do? How do I get to the shop? Go back here. And they had signs up, and you could get into the shop through the back way. And they did as much of their business as they could on that one day. Now, did they recover 100%? No, but they survived. They survived that year. Now, that would have been a disaster, right? So you need to work these out. You need to work through these types of possibilities as your business, in your business, and that is what business. That's what a business continuity plan is what could happen versus what do we do about it, and to sit there on paper and work this out. If we can't open on a specific day, if we can't, if a fire eats everything, where's our records? Who grabs the records? Whatever. Part of it is you identify the company's or business's critical functions. You need to write that down. You need to identify the resources that these functions depend on. Write that down. Calculate how long these functions can survive without these resources. In other words, you take away the resources, how long can you still make widgets? You need to identify the vulnerabilities, the threats. I guarantee you today we'd be doing a lot better if people had looked at the supply chains and said, what if? What if? What if we can't get our normal produce? Where do we get it from? What if we can't make those things out of that metal anymore? What if? You need to do these things. I guarantee you the big boys are all doing this kind of stuff. They have people that do nothing but sit in their offices and work this stuff out. But even if you're any kind of business, you can do this. You can do the same thing. You can say, what if we can't receive those? What if we can't receive mail for the day? What if, what if this? What if that? I mean, you sit there and got to think of it. You got to sit there and brainstorm. It is worth it. Calculate the risks for each of those different functions, each of those type of things that happen. I'm sure that not everyone's going to suffer sinkholes, but if you're in an area prone to sinkholes, then you need to calculate it in. I know for my area, it's tornadoes, so you need to calculate the possibility of a tornado. It's just something you got to do. You got to do it. You got to sit there and be a big boy and run your business correctly and plan this out. Take some time to plan it out. Calculate the risks. Take whatever tabletop exercise you did, whatever brainstorming you did, whatever you found, when you looked at your vendors and said, what if this vendor goes out of business or whatever, you've done all that. Make sure you document everything and then report it. And then you come back with a plan. The end result is a plan, a written, printed out document that sits somewhere, and multiple copies. Like a copy goes home with every, I wouldn't say every employee, but every manager. Maybe a copy goes home with every manager and says, refer to page 5 under section 12. Okay, we had a fire, and this is what we're going to do. You've already worked out how to recover. In any case, it's definitely something that needs to be done, and in cybersecurity, that's what we call it. We call it business continuity requirements. And as a cybersecurity engineer or analyst, you're going to work that out. So that's all I had in that piece. The last thing that I do, if you look at the bottom there, I do a website tool of the week. So for this, I have found something, and let me show it. Here it is. This is, it's called survivorlibrary.com. So this is something to take a look at. What it is a library of anything you might need if suddenly the lights go out. So there's even ways to actually download the whole thing. In other words, you can somewhere in here you can download the whole thing. Can't remember where it is, but yeah, you can basically say, or you can buy it. You can buy a whole copy of everything. So let's say that a disaster happens and you need to go to learn the basics of farming. What this will do is it'll tell you exactly everything all the human knowledge about farming, right? So basically this is what happens if the internet were to go down. I hope that someone came to this website and downloaded everything. You know what I mean? Because this is everything. This is everything. If you want to learn the basics of gardening, here it is. Here's how to produce beef. Here's how to do it. Here is how to garden. It's everything. Here's how to farm dairy. It's all here, right? Here's how to do irrigation and draining, what it means, why you need it, everything. So there's all kinds of things here. Probably one of the most important ones would be the medical. So, let's go to medical emergency, right? So there's a medical emergency. I hope someone downloaded this. That's what I'm saying. So, how to close wounds, survival medicine. This is all that's available as far as human knowledge goes, right here. If you downloaded all these things, you'd be ready for anything, at least as much as you could be. Field procedures, advanced field procedures for emergencies. In any case, I thought this website was interesting and helpful. So it's basically how to do things. So you don't have. So think about the Ukrainians, right? The Ukrainians are being bombed to where they have no power, or they have power only for about 10 hours a day or something like that. How do you keep things refrigerated? Well, here's how you do it. Here are all the helpful things about refrigeration. Here's how you can build your own refrigerator. Here's how refrigeration works. How they did it in the old days. That kind of thing. So I found it really helpful. Not just survival, but just to be able to do anything. How to make your own shoes. Wow, who knows what you're going to need, right? If there's a disaster. But here's how to make a shoe. I found it kind of cool. So that's what I do. That's the last thing I do is a website or tool of the week, and that's my tool for the week. Survivor Library. And that's the way you spell it, survivorlibrary.com. any case, that about does it for my show. So there we go. There's my contact info. And I'm going to be closing up the show here real quick. I don't typically rate anybody. I just close. I mean, it's not like I've got like 1 or 2 people, so I'm not there yet. But someday maybe, right? So at this point, I'll just close. But hey, thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. Time Machine 81 and whoever else is here, because I got 2 viewers, it says. I don't often look at the viewers, but it looks like they're there. So leave me a follow. Leave me a comment. I will copy this over to YouTube. So leave me a comment there. You can email me. Message me on YouTube, Twitter, whatever. Oh, I should put my Mastodon in there too. I forgot that. In any case, we'll see you later. Have a good day.